Hey everyone. We're gonna. Julie's the CEO of OUYA, and a lot of you guys might know that as the super successful Kickstarter campaign is $8.5 million. So micro console's out now. And quick question: are you in any of Wolf Tanks?
I'm not.
Okay. That's good.
I thought that was an awesome speech. It was a great session.
All right. Well, so we had a really successful Kickstarter campaign. Give us a quick update about where OUYA is now, especially in light of the new consoles coming out.
Yeah, so in August of last year, we completed our Kickstarter. We raised nearly $8.6 million. But most importantly, it was from 63,000 backers. And I say most importantly because the idea behind OUYA was to build a new type of game console that really didn't exist today. The idea behind OUYA was to disrupt an industry that was controlled by an oligopoly of competitors where they kept the television closed to new creators. And what we wanted to do was say, any creator can build for the television. We wanted to give them complete and utter freedom for the platform of their choice, which is the television. And then tell gamers, it doesn't have to be super expensive for you to try out new games, try out new developers, try out new genres. And so the early support from those backers really helped us establish and build a business. We launched our developer consoles in December of last year, launched in retail in June of this year in the US, Canada, and the UK. We expanded this month to Western Europe, Poland, Brazil. And as of today, we have 500 games on OUYA. We have over 26,000 developers with 50 to 100 games adding every single month, and it's really exciting.
Well, now, you helped us discuss this panel topic, and you said, the traditional console model has flipped. Obviously, you feel like you've contributed to that through OUYA, but kind of backing up and looking at the broader picture, like what do you mean by that exactly? Like what's happening in the console business to make you say that?
Well, I think the console business up until today has been really stagnant. I mean, it's been the same products from the same players, and the games that you play are really sequels or the next version of the game. There haven't been a ton of new breakouts, new franchises. It's just so expensive to launch them. And we're starting to see the changes. We're starting to see new brands establish themselves on other platforms. So there's been a big shift in addition to sort of Kickstarter giving people their start, but just openness that's coming to gaming, right? The openness that comes from mobile, that comes from the web, just being green light, allowing more creators opportunities to reach their gamers wherever they are. I think another big shift has been the global nature of gaming. I don't think we look at gaming anymore as how does gaming situate itself in the US. Right? If you look at games like Plants vs. Zombies, on mobile, for example, or even Wolf Tanks earlier, I mean, it's not just the location of the market where that game launches. And I think that's because of the maturity of Android, the ubiquity of products today, the ease with which gamers are getting into these games. Which is one of the reasons consoles are going to have to start changing and thinking about gamers differently.
Is it too early to say though that it has flipped? Because when you bring up great examples of what the gaming business is like now, but at the same time, like as we was mentioned in the earlier panel, that games like Grand Theft Auto 5, still dominating sales charts, still making a lot of money. We expect that its Call of Duty will do well, of course. So is it too premature to say that?
I mean, I think the people that play Minecraft wouldn't say it's too premature. If you ask the people who play Towerfall on OUYA, I wouldn't think they would say it's too premature either. I mean, there are new great games that are out there that people are spending a lot of time with. Grand Theft Auto is a great example of a phenomenal game that's in its version 5. Call of Duty has been around for 10 years. It started on the PC, and it's an unbelievable brand today. I think what's unique about the console space, it's not just about the brands, it's about creating an entire ecosystem and building a community of people that are welcome to new ideas and new developers and new types of games. And I think now is the time we're seeing the most gamers that we've ever seen, and they really want new experiences.
Now, going back to this shift, you said, obviously you guys are probably I'm assuming big fans of Kickstarter. Besides Kickstarter itself, have you seen any other kind of outside factors sort of contributing to this shift in the traditional gaming models?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kickstarter epitomizes what I think the major shift is that consumers have a voice now. I mean, before it used to be a product launches and then I have to decide if I want it, right? This big product comes out, there's hundreds of millions of dollars telling me how wonderful it is and how amazing the features on functionality and saying, hey, you want this. And there are so many times when we have ideas for products that we want, or ways we want to engage in a current product, that we've never had a voice to tell the people that are making it, this is what we want. And now we have a say. I mean, OUYA is what it is today because of the feedback we receive from gamers and developers, not only during the Kickstarter process, but every single day since, because we have so many channels in which we talk to them and we're constantly monitoring those. So I feel like the biggest difference is gamers, consumers, customers, however you want to define them, now actually get a say in advance of engaging with the product, what they want. And the best companies are going to be the ones who listen to that and build the product around that.
Now, do you feel like with the new consoles coming out, do you feel like maybe they're kind of also lagging behind in terms of the philosophical ideas behind, the machines, like they're still disc-based, and we're seeing a little bit more where they're reaching out to do things like streaming and sharing functions and digital content. But do you feel like the new consoles it's a little bit too late for that kind of model now?
I think there's a lot of excitement for the new consoles. I think they're going to do incredibly well. I mean, they have a very large install base, and they know what those gamers want. So I think these next-gen consoles are really speaking to that. But I think there's a very big movement as far as the creativity of developers not necessarily coming from publishers, or not necessarily coming from someone who's built a game before. And the willingness to take a chance on those and to give them, the most important screen in our lives is really difficult when you need big games to sell a number of units because just of the economics of the business. That's what makes it so unique, is that I don't need a game to pay for my console. I don't need a game to drive a number of units. I just, we built a business on economics that allowed for the greatest creative content to come to television for the first time, because we're not relying on sales to justify our existence.
Let's say, you get to a point where OUYA is as ubiquitous as an Xbox or PlayStation in living rooms, right? And then Activision comes to you and says, we want to put the next Call of Duty on your system. Like, what do you say to that?
No, I mean, on one hand, I'd say it's inevitable. I don't know when that is. And the reason I say that is because, the traditional publishers are sort of always late to the newest business models. They sort of take a wait-and-see approach. They see how it vets out, how the consumers engage it, and then they embrace it. Mobile being a great example, right? If you look at the top 25 games on iOS today, it's a mix between the traditional publishers and new developers, right? Like Supercell and whatnot. So, is it likely and inconceivable and inevitable that an Activision or an EA will come to OUYA? Absolutely. But one thing that's important to note is that when these publishers come to new platforms, they do take the time to make sure that they optimize and build that game for that audience and for that platform to really leverage the strengths. The reason I don't have a Call of Duty or a Madden or a FIFA on OUYA is because there is a perfect and great place to play those games today. Right? My box isn't as powerful. You're not going to get the same number of pixels on the screen, and that's okay. We exist for a totally different reason. We give a totally different experience to gamers, whether it's the developer, whether it's the type of game, whether it's more story-driven versus more action-driven. And so when those publishers come to us, it's going to be to bring the perfect game with the perfect type of game mechanics to a platform, leveraging what we have. It won't be the same thing.
Okay. Now, when we talk about going back to Kickstarter for a bit, so we have like really high-profile games like Chris Roberts and Star Citizen raising over, not just on Kickstarter, but, like over $20 million. Infamy and Mighty No. 9 raising over $3.8 million. Do you see that? Do you see that sort of with that sort of success and that sort of very high-profile success? Do you see part of this shift in the business where just people are turning? We're seeing it now, but do you see that? Where do you see that in the future? That's what I mean. Like in terms of crowdfunding, do you feel like, why go make a game for EA or Activision or Ubisoft or whomever if you can go and start maybe do really well on your own and control everything?
Yeah, I think part of that really depends on sort of what relationships you have. You may want to go to a big publisher or a big console, but you just may not have a path. And your great idea might die in the vine if that's your only option. And luckily today it's not, right? Because you have things like OUYA, you've got Steam Greenlight, you have Google Play Store and iOS. So there's a lot more options and availability to you. I think, are we going to see more games use crowdsourcing and crowdfunding to raise the dollars to build a game? Absolutely. You know, OUYA, we've got something right now, which they call the Free the Games Fund. It's $1 million fund that will match successful projects that are brought to Kickstarter that want to launch exclusively for some period of time on OUYA. And we have, 30 to 40, developers that have reached out to us that want to leverage sort of this program as well as Kickstarter because they believe it is a great way to get their vision of their game to gamers and decide if gamers are going to even want this. I mean, to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars building a game and then launch it and then have it die because they missed the mark because the gamers aren't interested in that, topic anymore or somebody else beat them to the punch. It's a hard proposition and it's not necessary today. I mean, you can put your idea out there and say, this is what I want to build, do you want this? And, with the likes of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and the rest, there is now a forum for gamers to say, yeah, I want that game.
Now, it kind of sounds like, with traditional console model, that you don't necessarily have the kind of flexibility as you might in the mobile market, or even on OUYA, for example. But with things like Kickstarter, like some of the projects we mentioned are AAA projects, like Mighty Number 9, for example, will be coming to consoles. Like, so do you see a lot of room for developers to have the best of both worlds and say, you know what, I'm going to, as you said, have the feedback from the community, build a game with the fans, and create something that they want, but also get onto a traditional console and follow that traditional business model at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the path they want to go, absolutely. I mean, with any large organization, and even with OUYA, in the beginning days when we were trying to sell the idea, the number one question we had was, well, how are you going to build traction, right? How are you going to get gamers if you have no content? How are you going to get developers if you have no games, right? It's not like we're hitting the market and we've got 1 million units day one. And that, for any new developer or any new IP, is the hardest question to answer, right? The answer is fail. I believe they will come. I believe people will want this. I've talked to, right? But there's no real evidence, right? The benefit of a crowdfunding site is there's evidence, right? Because you have backers, you have the dollars that they spent. But I'll give you an example from OUYA. So one of our most popular games, and it was since the day it launched, is Towerfall. It's Matt Thornton's Smash Brothers type game. Right. And there's nothing, incredibly different or unique or special about it. It's just an unbelievably well done game, right? And it came to OUYA first. And now it's going to come to PC and the other, platforms because he did build an audience and he did sort of build a following on OUYA. And then of course we want him to blow up and take this game everywhere and continue to iterate and perfect the game and bring those additions and upgrades to OUYA and everyone else. I mean, we want developers to make as much money as possible across as many platforms, as channels as they can. And a lot of people are finding success with an audience with OUYA because it's open, because we don't have those rules and regulations, because we don't have those barriers. I mean, we have one rule for developers, and that's some element of your game has to be free to try. Other than that, you can build it the way you want, you can monetize it the way you want, you can add as many upgrades and updates as you want without our approval, and that's resonating.
Now, this will be a one-sided biased view from you, but do you think if Towerfall launched on, let's say, Xbox Live Arcade or PC first or PlayStation Network, do you think it could have captured that same level of success, or do you feel like it's because at the time, like we didn't necessarily have that sort of one killer app or standout title, and so that one kind of rose to the top really quickly?
I mean, I think there's a benefit for any new platform to help people discover content, right? Because you're a big fish in a small pond, and when you find that great game, you're going to promote it like crazy. How would it done if it launched on one of the other platforms? I don't know. I mean, those companies are in the business of promoting their most popular games. They're going to sell units and sell other $60 games. So I don't know.
So what do you think is going to happen to the traditional console manufacturers like Microsoft and Sony? Where do you see them 3, 4, 5 years from now?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, what we're seeing today, I think, is indicative of what's going to happen in the next couple of years. There's a fight for the living room and who's going to own the box in the living room, and as a result, they'll continue to add features and functionality. It makes it incredibly difficult for the gamer because these price points are getting astronomical, not only for the console, but for the games. I mean, to take in a new generation console with all the bells and whistles and a couple of games, it's going to be $1,000 out there. And there's going to be a number of people that do that. The question is, how sustainable is that over time? And over time, how do we define what a great game is? One of the things that is really common about people who talk about OUYA and the games that they play is that they're having fun again. Right? It's not hours of playing a tutorial to learn it. It's not waiting for your friends to come online. They're just picking up and playing. And I think mobile started to change that behavior a little bit. I mean, the next generation consoles are going to be fine 4 years, but I think the world's going to look very different, 5 to 10 years from now. Are we going to have standalone game consoles? Are we going to have a single box in the living room? Are we going to have different storefronts for different types of experiences or not? We embrace openness as it relates to developers and gamers. That's core to our business, and I think that's what's going to make us, is making us a player, and is going to continue to make us a real player, because we let the creators have the freedom to build what they want.
Do you see that do you predict that there will be more consoles after this, including your own? Let's say in 4 or 5 years, however long it takes for the next generation's console to cycle out.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, hardware's hard, right? And it's very clear, at least today, you need that hardware to create that path to the marketplace. But it's not impossible. So building the hardware isn't, a lot of people can do that. There's fewer and fewer sort of barriers to entry. It's become a lot easier to build products today and to market them and ship them and provide them to gamers. I mean, the challenge is building the ecosystem of gamers and developers. Why Call of Duty is so great is because they have a community of over 40 million engaged people. Right? The Xbox 360 is amazing because they've got 80 million units in homes. Right? OUYA is great because in 30 days, we had 63,000 people saying, without it even existing, without any real games, it's like, we want this, right? And so the challenge is not how many consoles will be, it's just how many engaged communities are there going to be. And we all know that we can only handle so many communities, whether it's social or professional network or even gamer communities. We offer something very different, and it's being really well embraced. I mean, we have a really loyal and engaged audience of gamers and developers who actually feel a part of the development of OUYA, and I think that's what makes us unique and makes it defensible, and I think that's what's going to be hard for people to compete with.
Well, it sounds good, right? It sounds all good, but what happens when Microsoft launches Xbox One and Sony launches PlayStation 4 with those marketing dollars? Does a more open platform like OUYA, does it get kind of drowned out in all the marketing and advertising and all the big AAA titles that are released?
I mean, no, because we're not competing head-to-head with Microsoft and Sony. We're not offering a like product. We're offering something very different. I mean, OUYA is $99. All the games are free to try. There's over 500 games today, with more being added every single day. It's just a different experience. There's different types of games on OUYA. A lot of sort of local multiplayer games, a lot of retro games. I mean, the average gamer is a little bit older, and you can see that as far as the games that have been added to OUYA. Sort of the fun they're having was sort of just to pick up and play, but to pick up and play on a television with a device that is incredibly responsive and accurate, which is the controller. So, I've never thought of us competing directly with them. We're carving out our own niche. We have a different experience that's fun and unique, and to pick up a $99 game console where you can play Towerfall that you can't play anywhere else, or Bomb Squad, or Amazing Frog, Clark, is something we're already seeing people doing.
Thank you. And we got about a minute for any questions from the audience. Any questions here? Over there. Do we have microphones or anything? Okay.
Hi there, I was just wondering, what's the ratings regime that you're going to have on the console?
Great. We do age rating, so very similar to the mobile app stores today. So you do a self-rating, and then we do a review just to make sure it's accurate. We have age gating on the console so that you can, restrict different types of rating games for your user if you want. So if your family, 9+ games, you can restrict those. But we want to be really consistent with other platforms, so you only have to think about it once.
Question here? Oh,
Cool.
sorry.
Do this one and then this one next.
Okay, great, thanks. So OUYA is great, generated a lot of buzz and attention, but I've noticed also a lot of comment, people who complain about the product. So asking you maybe a little bit embarrassing question, how do you see that you can improve the product and the ability to deliver?
What was the
I saw a lot of comments on the product all over the news channels and all that.
Right.
So people are complaining about the product, complaining about the delivery. So you, as the CEO, how do you see that's going to be improved in your roadmap?
Yeah, so I thought the embarrassing question would be like, how old am I? And what's my design? That question's been asked almost daily. The answer is we've gotten better. And the answer is OUYA is not a finished product. It's never going to be a finished product. We're constantly iterating and improving it. The reason OUYA is better today than when it launched in June is because of the feedback that we were seeing from gamers and developers. Every single month, we're updating our software, we're updating our UI, we're adding more features and functionality. So the hope is that every single month, people think it's better and it's improving. I think that's the right answer. I mean, it's always going to get better. We think the base experience is great. We fixed a lot of the early issues that was addressed back in June when we launched. The Kickstarter days of shipping are behind us. People are getting their units. Retail has embraced us more. Target, we went full chain this month. We've expanded into Western Europe and South America. So I feel like things are, on a good path.
All right, one more question here, and then we'll wrap up.
What's the business model for you guys to make money and also for the developer economy?
Yeah, for developer, it's similar to other app stores. So it's a 70-30 rev share where the developer makes 70%. Our goal on the hardware is to sell it for as inexpensively as we can because it's really important that gaming is accessible to gamers.
What's your business model?
We make 30% on the software sales,
Okay, so
or we take 30%.
razor blade, so basically no money on hardware, make it all on
That's
software.
correct. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.